There was a moment in the 1800s when Manchester stopped being a city and became a machine. Smoke replaced sky. Noise replaced silence. Time itself was broken into shifts, whistles, and wages. This wasn't progress as people imagined it. This was Manchester, where industry didn't arrive politely. It took over. Manchester didn't rise slowly. It detonated. At the start of the 19th century, it was still recognizable. A market town, damp streets, modest workshops, people who knew one another by name. Cotton passed through by hand, work followed daylight, life had edges. Then the mills arrived. And with them came something new. Scale. Factories rose fast and ugly, brick boxes with rows of windows that never slept. Steam engines thudded day and night. Power looms multiplied output beyond anything human hands could match. Production exploded. And Manchester became the center of it all. Cotton poured in from abroad, raw fiber in, finished cloth out. Railways stitched the city into the rest of Britain. Canals choked with barges. Money flowed faster than the streets could absorb it. The city grew sideways and upward at the same time. But people didn't grow with it. Workers flooded in from the countryside. Families packed into hastily built housing. Streets filled with rows of back-to-back homes. No drainage, no ventilation, no privacy. Entire neighborhoods were built to be close to mills. Close enough that the noise followed you home. The air changed first. Coal smoke darkened the sky. Soot settled on windows, skin, food, lungs burned. Coughs became permanent. Children learned the taste of ash early. The river followed. The Irwell turned black, dyes waste, chemicals poured in unchecked. Water stopped being something you trusted. Still, the mills ran. Because stopping them meant stopping wages. And stopping wages meant starvation. Inside the factories, time behaved differently. Work began before sunrise. Bells replaced clocks. 12, 14, 16-hour shifts were common. The machines dictated pace, not people. If you slowed down, you were replaced. Children worked beside adults. Small hands were useful. Crawling under machines was expected. Injuries were routine. Death was an inconvenience. No one called it cruelty. They called it necessity. Owners rarely entered the floor. They saw numbers, not bodies. Output mattered, efficiency mattered, profit mattered. And Manchester delivered all three. The city earned a new name. Cottonopolis. A badge of honor to some. A warning to others. Wealth concentrated quickly. Grand houses rose away from the mills. Clean streets, fresh air, distance from the noise. The industrial elite lived in a different Manchester entirely. Two cities sharing the same name. One produced wealth. The other paid for it. And tension grew in the gap. Workers began to notice patterns. The hours never shortened. The pay barely rose. The machines multiplied. Meanwhile, owners grew richer without touching the looms. Questions formed. Then anger. Meetings happened quietly at first. Taverns, back rooms, union whispers, pamphlets circulated. Ideas spread faster than authorities expected. What if this system wasn't natural? What if it was designed? Manchester had become proof of something terrifying. That industry could reshape everything. Cities, families, bodies, time itself. Without asking permission. And once that realization set in, the city could never go back to sleep. Because the pressure breaks. Protests turn violent. Reform is demanded and resisted. And Manchester becomes the place where the modern struggle between labor and power explodes into the open. Manchester didn't explode all at once. It compressed first. The mills grew louder. The streets grew tighter. And patience ran out quietly before it ran out loudly. By the mid-1800s, the people of Manchester understood something they hadn't before. This wasn't temporary hardship. This wasn't a bad season. This was the system. Wages stayed low while output soared. Machines improved, but hours didn't shrink. Injuries increased. Children disappeared into factory shifts and came back older, quieter, damaged. And the city kept telling them this was progress. At first, resistance was cautious. Workers met in taverns after shifts, windows shut, voices low. They didn't talk about overthrowing anything, just survival. Shorter hours, safer conditions, a wage that didn't vanish before the week ended. They petitioned. Nothing changed. They organized. Owners threatened replacements. They protested. Authorities watched. The first large demonstrations weren't riots. They were marches, thousands moving together through industrial streets, past mills that never stopped running. Men, women, children, faces exhausted, disciplined, angry. The message was simple. We built this and we are breaking under it. The response was colder. Factory owners refused demands. Government officials warned of disorder. Troops were called in just in case. And then the machine showed its teeth. Crowds were charged, protesters were struck, arrests followed. Newspapers framed workers as dangerous, ungrateful, replaceable. Manchester learned something brutal in that moment. Industry didn't just control time and labor. It controlled the narrative. Still, resistance didn't stop. It evolved. Strikes spread unevenly. Some mills shut down briefly, others doubled security. Families starved while waiting for change. Children were sent to work earlier to compensate for lost wages. The cost of resistance was immediate. The cost of obedience was permanent. That realization hardened people. Reform movements grew louder, demands sharpened, calls for limits on child labor, on working hours, on factory safety. Slowly, agonizingly, laws began to change. But they didn't come from mercy. They came from fear. Fear that Manchester was becoming ungovernable. Because the city had become proof of something no one could ignore anymore. Unchecked industry didn't just produce wealth. It produced pressure. Pressure that built inside bodies, inside families, inside streets packed too tight to absorb it forever. By the late 1800s, Manchester looked powerful from a distance. From inside, it looked exhausted. The skyline was higher, the mills more advanced, the railways more extensive. But the human cost was etched into everything. This city had shown the world how to industrialize. And in doing so, it showed the world what it breaks. Manchester in the 1800s didn't invent industry. It perfected concentration. Of labor, of machines, of profit, of suffering. This wasn't just a local story. Cities across Britain and then across the world copied what worked here. Mills, housing blocks, timetables, hierarchies. Manchester became the template. And templates replicate faster than ethics. The modern world didn't grow naturally out of tradition. It was forced into existence by places like this. Cities that traded air for output, time for wages, human limits for efficiency. Manchester didn't ask whether industry should take over. It showed what happens when it does. And once the machine proved it could run on people, there was no going back. If you want history that doesn't flatter progress, that doesn't sanitize power, that shows how the modern world was built at human scale. Subscribe. This channel isn't about nostalgia or celebration. It's about pressure, systems, and the moments where society crossed lines it couldn't uncross. More cities, more centuries, more stories about how the world we live in was shaped. Before anyone asked who would pay the price,